Welcome to Beat About Interviews. This is Jesse A.M. I'm joined by Mark Davis, a local filmmaker, the director, producer, everything of Pickens Tunnel. So, Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent. So, give us the elevator pitch to your film.
Well, it's a story that revolves around a local legend haunt in the area named Pickens Tunnel. And it's basically takes place about a woman who's in a broken relationship that goes to the tunnel and what happens to her group of friends after she's haunted by it.
I'm so glad to have you on. This is a perfect interview for Halloween. And I love the idea that I saw in the first trailer that sometimes when you go into Pickens Tunnel, something comes back out with you.
That's true.
So this was actually inspired by a real story, a real local story. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, there's an old tunnel in Kingsport near near Mount Carmel, I think, and it's called Sensabaugh Tunnel, and that's where I drew the inspiration from. And there's several different lores about the place, and I picked and chose the ones that I liked and made up some of my own.
Some of the best continuity is apocryphal. Why did this story inspire you? You know, what made you want to make this movie?
It inspired me just because I'm more of a fan of the supernatural ghost story as opposed to the Texas Chainsaw type film.
Yeah, your reality horror film, like
yes.
the gruesome, the torture porn, the slashers.
You can always run away from Jason or Michael Myers, but it's hard to run away from ghosts. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your background as a filmmaker? You know, what kind of history you have, or tell us about you as an individual, how you approach making films.
First of all, I'm a huge film fan. I think that's where it starts. I'm self-taught. I've never been to film school. So everything that I've learned on my own. I did live in Colorado for a few years and got together with some other folks who were fans and had a very good mentor by the name of Michael Haspel. And he and I used to talk about movies a lot and making films, and he had made some short films of his own. And I kind of latched onto his knowledge and then researched myself and taught myself how to make films, and I just kind of went out there and did it. So.
Now, with this production of Pickens Tunnel, you're using, what, Sixes and Seven Entertainment?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that company?
It's a film company that I started for Pickens Tunnel. We're a small independent, funded by me solely, and we're looking right now to make short films would look into making some documentaries and hopefully getting into full-length films on down the road as we get more experience.
Well, I think that's a smart way to take it, too, because often we have these lofty expectations of what being a filmmaker is, you know, our daydreams about being a filmmaker. But can you tell us a little bit about what kind of challenges or realities of making films that you encountered, you know, during your time making Pickens Tunnel? You know, there's a reality to being an independent filmmaker versus what we think on our own aspirations.
Being an independent filmmaker, I call it making films with popsicle sticks and Elmer's glue. I mean, it's you're really ultra low budget. We had basically no budget. Most of the budget went to the equipment itself to actually make the movie. We shot all on location. We didn't have any sets built or anything like that. And it's the coordination's tough, getting location releases, actors releases, finding actors, finding a dependable crew, which, by the way, I had an awesome crew, and they really made the movie. I was just there to coordinate and point, basically. And I just couldn't ask for better actors and sound design, and my editor's awesome. And it was a challenge. Filming on location's hard. When you have a set, you can kind of set it up the way you want it to move the camera. When you're on location, you kind of have to move around the location.
It's true, because the thing people don't think about a lot when you're filming on location is the way that the light will interact with everything else, the way that the sound is going to be by virtue of where you are.
Yes.
So there are things that are a little bit more difficult than what we necessarily first believe. Now, as a filmmaker, can you tell me about some of your own inspirations? Who inspires you cinematically?
I have a number of inspirations for film, but if I had to pick three that inspired me for Pickens Tunnel, I would pick Takashi Miike, who's a director of Audition and Ichi the Killer. I would also pick Neil Marshall, who directed The Descent.
This
And,
being one of the
oh.
best horror films in the last 10 to 15 years,
Oh,
honest to
yes.
God.
And David Fincher is a big influence for me. I love all of David Fincher's films, and those would probably be my top three. And I kind of bounce back and forth because Tobe Hooper, the director of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he was a pretty big influence on the kind of the look of this film, the documentary, grainy style.
But maybe not necessarily onto the content.
Yeah,
when you
the
think of a guy
content.
like Mike, you think about pushing your boundaries, pushing
Yes.
your extremes. No, those are some fantastic inspirations. What was the most difficult thing about finishing this film? You know, a lot of people get started on films and let them drop off, but now that you've finished it and you're working to get the production out there to people, what is the most difficult thing that you've encountered in this post-production?
Post-production, just getting the lighting right in certain scenes. We had to use mostly natural light, especially for the outdoor scenes. It was extremely difficult. We had to shoot a lot of day for night scenes. That was the most difficult part, really, was the editing process. It took us a while, but I have a fantastic editor. Joel Scherber lives here in Bristol, and he just did a fantastic job. Can't praise him enough.
So the obvious question is, when will this film be released, and how can we see it?
Right now, our plans are, if you go to 6 and 7's Productions on Facebook, you can view the trailers. And later on, we'll have a link to a YouTube page that you'll be able to go and view the film in its entirety. And also, we have a showing on October 31st. It's Halloween at O'Mannon's Pub and Grill here in Bristol. So,
Absolutely. That's going to be the night after the Beat About show. It's with Citizen Kane. We've got the Pickens Tunnel coming up with that, too. So come down the day after. If you come to the show, make sure you're back the next night. You'll see Pickens Tunnel. You'll see some great bands and have a really good time at O'Mannon's Pub and Grill. Mark, what else can you tell us about this or get us excited about the movie?
Oh, it's a great film. We had some really great actors. It's local, so all of the locations were here in Bristol and Kingsport and a little bit in Fall Branch. 3 of our actors were actually just in a production back to the 80s at Bristol Theater, and they were just fantastic. They did a really knockout job. It's a great film. It's just exciting. The people that have viewed the whole thing are really excited about it. The cast and crew really love it, so I think it's well worth the time to come out and check out.
Okay, well, that about wraps it up here with Mark Davis. Again, I'm Jesse A.M. With Beat About Interviews. Make sure you go to facebook.com/6 and 7's Productions and check out Pickens Tunnel and be with us on October 30th at O'Mannon's Pub and Grill.